All right, Rebecca, you are next. And I think the challenge that, all right. Well, it looks like Rebecca is bringing an entourage on the. She's bringing a team up there. And the question is structured physical education in schools sufficient to meet the emotional regulation needs of today's youth? Rebecca, you lead the way.
My favorite PE memory is my PE teacher, Mrs. Hayes. She introduced me to volleyball, and I loved playing volleyball, and I loved it so much that I became a collegiate sport athlete. So that's my favorite PE memory is my teacher.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Emily. I'm a lead occupational therapist at Her Wellness Institute. We're a nonprofit here in Milwaukee providing free mental health and wellness services to victims of violence and crime, Indigenous and underserved populations. My favorite gym memory is a little bit difficult. We had a conversation there, but I think it's scooter boards and like the parachutes in gym class, throwing the balls in it and everyone running underneath is so fun. So, yeah.
There we go. Hi, everybody. Francine Derrick. I was presented earlier. I would say my favorite, I loved physical activity. I loved the Canadian fitness testing that we used to have to do, which most kids hated, but I came to the US to run as a scholarship athlete. So it's been very formative in all of the work that I do.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carol Ma. So, funnily enough, when you asked that question, I was like, oh my goodness, because I would say I have more negative memories than positive. But I would say a positive one is in grade 4, our teacher used to take us outside to play rounders all the time. I don't know if you have rounders here. It's kind of like baseball, but like a playground version of it. And yeah, everyone in our class loved rounders. And basically, we'd always try to rush to finish our lessons so that there'd be time to go and play rounders for the last 15 minutes.
So I want you all at your tables, take 2 minutes and describe your own favorite PE memory. What's interesting with this panel is you saw 2 out of 4 people, they had to reach down low, reach down deep to find a positive PE memory. So let me see if the same is true at your tables. 2 minutes and then we're back at it. Trying to put together all the stations, and you're like, but I 30 seconds. Okay, so in that 2-minute time frame, you may not have had an opportunity for everyone to share, but hopefully you heard a diverse experiences in terms of physical education. But the first question we need to decipher in order to answer this question is, what is physical education and how does that differ from physical activity? So let me start with our first panelist, Emily. What's the difference between physical activity and physical education in order for us to answer our question? Is structured physical education in schools sufficient to meet the emotional regulation needs of today's youth?
I think for me, physical education is the teaching of those physical activities, very structured. Yeah, very structured. But physical activity is just movement. It could be play, it could be engaging, running across the room. That to me is physical activity.
I don't think I have anything to add other than I think another variable we should consider, another term, is leisure time physical activity, because I think that's very important to a lot of the discussions that we've already had around trying to make it fun.
I might just add to the definition of physical education. So yes, obviously it's structured, often it's around sports, that involve rules and cooperation and turn taking. And so sort of all of those social skills in addition to the actual movement. And I'd say increasingly it's also about the physical literacy. So like building the movement skills so that, children have the skills to be successful when it comes to participating in sport. Yeah.
That's a very important distinction that we have between physical activity, which is general bodily movement, and physical education, which is an actual standardized curriculum with actual standards that you have to meet in teaching children how to move. So the next question that we'll ask to try to get to this question, the overarching question, is how might physical education influence or teach social emotional skills? Does it teach social emotional skills? Start with the panel, and then I'll open it up to the audience because we know Joe engages and promotes PE, so he might have some comments on this as well. So how does physical education impact social or teach social emotional skills?
Okay, so, well, thankfully, I don't think these days we have the, picking two captains who then get to choose children to be on their team. Because obviously that really teaches children emotional skills and probably not good ones. But yeah, definitely, because of the structure and the rules-based nature, that is definitely teaching skills. Moving within rules. The teamwork, dealing with the emotion of winning and losing. Yeah, so I'd say absolutely all those things. Did we get to the? It's how does PE contribute? It's not that question, is it? Yeah. Okay, great. But obviously, it's not enough on its own.
Well, let's go. Okay. It's not obvious. So let's see. So what are some other things? Joe, answer the question. How does PE help to support social emotional skills?
My answer to that sort of wrapped up in what you were just saying about like this teaching of what's turn taking look like. One of the things that invariably happens when I'm teaching a class is somebody fails at performing well in whatever game or skill we're trying to do. And when that happens and you see the tears come and all that stuff, is I try to, one, talk with the kid directly and say, hey, I see you're feeling sad right now, but look at my face. Am I angry at you? Not at all. I use this ad nauseum, but the price of being good at something is sucking at it first, right? So the fact that you can't do this well right now is within the scope of normal, right? And the only way we're going to push past this is if we keep trying. And I'm here to help you with that. So like when I look at meeting emotional needs for my students, it's understanding that there needs to be a deeper philosophical understanding of what we're doing there, that classroom is fun. It's like a fun lab, like a laboratory for fun. And that, yes, we're playing the game and yes, we're moving our bodies, but there is a deeper foundational level here of teaching people how to be human through play and through games. So I guess for me, that's how I would answer that question, is that yes, done right with the right philosophical backing, structured physical activity can definitely meet those emotional needs for kids.
Yep, here we come. Here comes another educator. Introduce yourself and give us your opinion.
I'm Elliot Gannett. I was an educator for 11 years. So does physical education meet the social emotional needs of kids? I would push and say that it doesn't. It ends too early. I think that too often social emotional needs through physical activity ends in like elementary grades. It's like US, like 10, 11 years old. And then too soon, middle school and up, it becomes more competitive, more like, hand-eye coordination, competitive team sports, and we don't give our kids quite as many options of moving their body and learning to feel comfortable with their body, kind of like physical literacy as they get older. So I don't know what to do about it, but I don't think it's happening as well as it could.
We have a yes, and then we have a yes, kind of, sort of, but we need to keep doing it into K-12. Awesome. Oh, got another person coming on. I'm getting my physical activity.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and my work is in early childhood mental health. And I think that you can have an educator in any field. You can have an English teacher that can teach great emotional regulation, or a physical education teacher that teaches emotional regulation. I think a key would be if the educator understands the nervous system, because there's so many opportunities to teach emotional regulation if they can attune to the child. When that's missed, more harm can happen and it becomes a barrier.
Awesome. Awesome. And as I see a hand that was inching up, so I'm coming for you. Sounds good. Jessica.
Okay. Yeah, I like what you just said about that, about how it really makes a difference who's doing it. When you talked about the fact that you see a kid crying, you get down there and you say, look at my face. You're co-regulating with that kid at that moment, and that's touching the nervous system. And if we have people doing that, then yeah, fantastic. I don't think that's always what happens, but I think that's a really important part of the physical exercises, that we have someone co-regulating with them.
All the way across the room. So be processing these comments while I run across the room to understand more about PE and self-regulation.
My name is Kim Vigil, and I'm a faculty member at Murray State University, and I do teach in health and physical education. I have the privilege of preparing future PE teachers. And so when we look at this question through the lens of a comprehensive school physical activity plan, we see that if we have a quality physical education plan, like Joe pointed out, that is the center of our comprehensive school physical activity plan. However, that's not the end piece. The end piece includes embedding activity with families and communities, embedding activities before school and after school, embedding physical activity through exercise snacks throughout the school day, right? And so when we look at all of these things, we also need to provide children with open-ended opportunities for them to figure out how to emotionally regulate. Yes, we need to model, but we also need to provide opportunities through open-ended play, like Dr. Gray was talking about, nature-based opportunities and places and spaces outside of just structured PE. So I think there's a combination. There's a lot of moving parts that have to happen here.
The slide that you see on the board talks about some of the research that my PhD student has done related to emotion regulation and what are those neurophysiological processes. We know it goes through a cognitive process, so thinking that when you encounter a stressor and your emotions become dysregulated, that it can inflect your thinking about the problem. We know that it affects a mood, so how you feel, and that it also affects your behaviors. I talked a lot this morning about the externalizing behaviors that we see in the classroom. And we know that physical activity can influence all three of those pathways. And if you look at the next slide, maybe a few more slides, 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 that one. This is a nice literature review that was done that shows how different types of physical activities can influence the cognitive, behavioral, and mood pathways. You see the exercise snacks are way over there in mood in terms of classroom, and you heard that this morning, how we can just a little 1-minute energy booster can help to change children's moods or improve their moods. PE is right there in the middle, motor skills. You heard about different games. And then the cognitive pathways, we see this in more team-based sports, martial arts, yoga, mindfulness, and after-school programs. So as you heard from the the last speaker, having a smorgasbord, a buffet of physical activity options is really what's going to help our children be successful. Any other comments or thoughts on that? Yes, here we go.
So I work as a therapist in Minnesota, and one of the things that I'm really happy about this conference is that we're coming here together as a community. And when we learn, we pass it on, but we also collaboratively work. So we're bringing things to our community using mental health and physical wellness. And all of the comments and information we're getting here teaches us that uh, we have to look at the community where they're at. Whenever I have a challenging client that I work with, especially teens, they just can't do anything. There's a deep rooted things going on. So we can do this either on an individual level or as a community psychologist in a larger level. Where are the troubles coming from? Where are the challenges coming from? Because we can, once we get to that space where people are feeling comfortable in their own skin and they're feeling comfortable as a group, and we're healing ruptures that can happen, that's when the real work begins. Simon, I saw his presentation last time, and just the places he went to and how he negotiated and how he got the for the women advocacy for wellness and how that changed. It just it warms my heart, but also tells me how much can we do. I mean, we do what we can, but what we can do is a lot.
It's a great statement. Do what we can, but what we can do is a lot. Hey, good job. Good job. All right. So as we're talking about physical activity, physical education, and how that helps to support emotional needs, we heard some say, yes, PE can do it all. We heard some said we need a smorgasbord of physical activity. Are there other aspects or other strategies outside of the physical activity domain that can also support or supplement what physical activity is doing? I'm going to bring it back to our panel that's nodding their head yes. So what are some other strategies we can use in both children and adults to support to support emotion regulation? I'll start with Carol and work our way down.
So I would say the physical activity is right up there. Also, sleep is extremely important. A lot of children aren't getting enough sleep, and that obviously has quite a negative impact on their ability to emotionally regulate, especially children that are challenged with their emotional regulation. Screen time would be another real challenge in society now. A lot of the kids that are the ones that struggle with emotional regulation are the same ones that really, really love their screen time. And I think probably every parent here, myself included, knows how hard it is to limit screen time. It's a bit of a daily challenge. I think those things have a huge part to play. Look, and I'm sure if there were dietitians in the room, they would also say diet. A lot of our research often wouldn't pick up diet so much, as in like diet doesn't seem to be quite as big a risk factor as we think. But probably say some of the preservatives and additives in the more sort of junk foods are probably a bigger part of the problem there. Sugar probably less of a problem than we think. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of a different lens, just in thinking in terms of school-based versus community type programming. So I think in the work that my team has done, we've looked at youth and we've looked at where they're accessing physical activity or recreation programs. And what we see in low-income communities is that it's almost all happening at the school or after school. So I think there's huge opportunities for more community-based programming to support emotional regulation. But I think the reality is we really need to focus on these school-driven models because there is such great reach.
At Her Wellness, emotional regulation is a big practice that we follow. We do that somatically. So we do a lot of somatic work. We do a lot of physical activity work, a lot of mindfulness, breathing. So we were at our table earlier, we're teaching Rebecca a couple healing activities that we can do in real time to really bring in that self-regulation, that mindfulness, that physical activity, even just sitting in our chairs. So we were doing emotional freedom technique tapping. We did quick coherence, heart breathing. We do pace a lot at our work, which comes from Brain Gym. So there's a lot of ways that we can integrate other avenues for emotional regulation, not just through physical activity, but also bringing that a little bit of physical activity in a tasteful way, in a way that's accessible to everybody. Yeah.
Why don't you, since we have a couple of minutes left, why don't you show us one of your strategies? I really like the tapping one, but this is educational for everyone. And how might we combine that with physical activity or physical education?
I'll teach PACE. That's something as an occupational therapist that I do often. I teach our youth, I teach our elders, everyone does it. So this is a practice that we can do sitting up or standing up or sitting down. So I'll stand as well. But if you would prefer to sit, the movement will be the same sitting. I'll show both ways just so everyone can see. Or one of my partners in crime can show a sitting version. So wonderful. Okay, so the first and most important step is to take a drink of water. So taking a drink of water increases electricity in our body. So we do that first. Yeah. Sometimes I pretend just to do the practice. And then we'll do brain buttons. So, can you hold this for a second? So brain buttons, we'll do one hand here in the soft part right underneath our collarbones. There's acupressure points. So we're stimulating those by just doing a little gentle massage. And I put my other hand on my belly, not to focus too much on that breathing, but just to notice. Because the real intention is just doing this little massage here, doing a little pressure. You might notice if you're breathing deeper or slower. And then we'll get into cross crawls. So cross crawls gets both parts of our brain moving. It's a bilateral, yes, crossing our midline. So we would go right hand to left knee, left hand to right knee. So if you're sitting, just like that, crossing. If you're standing and you can't bring your knee up, it could just be going across. Whatever that looks like for you, it's just crossing midline. Slow and intentionally. It's not about the speed. It's just about connecting both sides, thinking about it. Doing amazing. Thank you. And then, oh, thank you. The last part is hookups. So we put the back of our hands together, then we go over and connect, pulling our hands in, and then, if you can, crossing your ankle. So if balance is a little difficult, sitting might be the best choice, safest choice. But now in here, we're just taking a couple deep breaths. So we're focusing on the feeling. This is a really calming position. It gives our body that proprioceptive input, which helps us relax. You might find that you naturally sleep in this position. I curl my arms in all the time. And we're just breathing in this. And then you can untangle yourself. Sometimes people might need to do a little shake out. I ask sometimes for people to put their hands close, almost touching, but not quite, and seeing if you notice anything, any feelings. For me, sometimes I can feel a little like energy. I feel a little more buzzy, energized. That's the purpose of PACE, is to get us focused, to get us energized. It would be a great exercise snack because it gets you ready for your next assignment. We do this as we transition groups to get into your next thing, whatever that looks like. Super quick, easy, accessible from Brain Gym.
Awesome. Yay, let's give a Brain Gym a hand. So in the last couple of minutes that we have, just one little comment to answer our question. The answer is, as every academic would say, maybe. So maybe physical education, if it's done the right way and if it's informed by social emotional, the teachers teaching high quality physical education and they understand the benefits of self awareness, social awareness, and how you can use physical activity to manage that, and you incorporate different practices, it could be a win win. But I think if Dr. Rosenbaum was up here, he would say not all children have access to physical education. We know that many children do not have, at least in the United States, do not have access to a certified PE teacher. And so that if we're going to depend on physical education, we need to make sure it's high quality, but we should also be looking at community-based spaces to also promote social emotional learning and not just rely on school models. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Before you leave the stage, I do have a question. In the high income community in this country, I see a tremendous amount of shift in after school activity to league activities where kids are involved in all different sports leagues of all kind, which really feel that the narrative of that has shifted from being in a activity form where the parents are now thinking, my son is playing in that league, it's A, B, C, D, whatever, and they have a great year last year. They won 27 out of their 28 games. How do we deal with that? I don't really feel it's achieving the physical activity, the emotional benefits associated with physical activity, because we're shifting we're shifting the story from that of being active to that of, again, I keep bringing it back. How do we address that?
That's the $1 million question there. But how I've seen it addressed in other countries is I had an opportunity to travel to Brazil this summer. And while they still have competitive sports, because, they're soccer geniuses, they have what is called Fujiball 3. Fujiball 3 is soccer 3, meaning they have incorporated physical activity they have incorporated social emotional skills into the game of soccer. How do they do that? By 3 different rules. The first rule is the students develop the rules, and the rules can include you can scoring a goal is only one way to score points. The more teammates that you have on the field, you'll score a point. If the kids don't use a swear word, you score a point. If they do use a swear word, you lose a point. And so it's not just based on athletic ability and your ability to kick as many goals and score as many points, but you have these social emotional rules that they're using on how to become better teammates, players, and things of that nature. So that's number one. They set the rules, and the adult just moderates and gets a clear understanding from all the students that are playing. Then they play the game according to the rules. Then afterwards, they debrief. How did they play? How did they play according to the rules? And then you determine who won the game or who didn't. And again, you might have only scored one goal, but you might have also gotten 5 or 6, 10 points because you played it more equitably and more fair. And so I think that's a wonderful model for us to think about here in the United States, where it's really very privatized and competitive driven. And it's moving away. I mean, we could have a whole long symposium on youth sports in this country, but we won't go there. But I think in general, if we can think about how can we make it more inclusive. So we didn't get a chance to talk about how in PE, but also in sport, most kids are introduced to sports. Either you're good and you make the team, or you're not so good and try something else. So you have an immediate success or an immediate failure. And a lot of folks who don't make the team, they never come back to that sport. So what are other ways in which we can introduce students to sports in a safe way that is not so traumatizing, for lack of a better word? One way that we try to do that is we had the Detroit Lions. They made exercise videos, American football here in the United States. So Rory is doing little football drills. We had the Detroit Pistons make some videos so kids can practice sports skills in the comfort of their own home. And we have some evidence from the kids that are saying now that they've built their confidence a little bit up in a safe space, then they can transition. Let me try out for a team. Or, Dad, will you put a basketball hoop in our front yard and can we play together? So I think there are different models. It's an uphill battle, but we can do it to give, again, all kids opportunities to be active.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we are going to take a 10 minutes break, exactly. Not 9, not 11, 10 minutes. And we're going to be back here So thank you so much, guys. And thank you. Thank you so much, everyone here.